guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Holly. Today I am going to be doing the Booktube Newbie Tag. It has been requested both on here and on my Bookstagram, which is Holly Loves Books, Holly with an IE, if you don't follow that already. So let's get into it. So the first question is, why did you start this channel? I started it because I just love reading. I've just finished my course at university doing creative writing and English literature, and I just read a lot, and I think by making this channel I could talk about books forever. I think all my friends know that, and I read so much, and I think by making this channel it kind of like pushes me to read a little bit more as well. What are some fun and unique things that you can bring to Booktube? I've never really done a themed channel before. It will be an interesting experience. I do talk a lot about queer literature and literature involving minorities, which I don't think is talked about enough, both in book forums, on Bookstagram and on Booktube. So I think I'll be able to like shed some light on some books that you might be a little less familiar about as well. And because I have done English literature, I hope to be talking about some of the books that I've studied there, which I think aren't really talked about as much on Booktube. What are you most excited for about this new channel? I'm just excited to connect with some of you guys, to hear what your favourite books are, and to recommend books as well. And hopefully if you guys read them, please leave a comment either on my YouTube videos or on my Bookstagram, because I would really love to hear what you think about them. And I think it's really amazing that like the internet exists and we can start like conversations like this. Question 4, why do you love reading? I've loved it ever since I was little. My mum used to take me to the library when I was a baby, like 2-3 years old, before my brothers came along. And we'd go, and it'd be a bit like Matilda when she goes to the library and she comes out with like so many books. I just love that you can go into a world and that it is different from real life, and it is a kind of escape from normality and reality. And I think as a writer as well, reading books helps me get better at writing, so the two kind of bounce off each other, and I really enjoy both of them. Question 5, what book or series got you into reading? I wouldn't really say anything necessarily got me into reading, because like I said, my mum used to read to me when I was little, or she'd take me to the library and I'd pick up books and stuff. The earliest book I remember her reading to me was One Duck Stuck, who I can't remember the author of, but it's basically a picture book about a duck that gets stuck. So that's like my earliest book that I can remember, along with things like We're Going on a Bear Hunt and The Very Hungry Caterpillar and stuff like that. When I started reading myself, it probably was Harry Potter and A Series of Unfortunate Events that really like got me into reading. Because I read the first Harry Potter book when I was 5, which was very early on in the series, and I've kind of grown up with it as well because I was born the year before it came out. So they kind of stuck with me throughout, and then when I really started getting into reading, I was in high school. And I read a lot of Jacqueline Wilson books, Bad Girls and Best Friends being like my 2 favourite books. My sister Jodie traumatised me, so I won't go into that. And even like the Twilight books like was something that I really cherished when I was younger, and they kind of like opened my mind up to a wider area of reading, because when I was younger I used to only read like kids books, but Twilight is considered young adult, and that's what got me into reading young adult fiction. Question 6. What questions would you ask your favourite booktubers? How do you afford so many books? How do you have so many big bookshelves? I have one bookcase, which you can see a little bit there, so that's not even like half of it. I cannot fit all my books on that. I am poor because I have spent so money on books, particularly for university, and I just don't have enough room in my room for an extra bookcase. So any advice, even if you're not a booktuber, even if you just have a lot of books, on ways to get new books at a cheaper price, how to organize your books, where to sell books, because I have so many books that I want to get rid of, like from being in uni and stuff. All my Norton anthologies are brand new and I've barely touched them, and I just want to get rid of them, and they cost me so much to buy them. So any advice, I will gladly take it. Question 7. What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? One of the main challenges I think is keeping to a schedule. Plus I don't really have a good camera or a good video editor, so I think they're going to be really difficult to deal with. I think it'll be difficult as well if people criticize your favourite book, because I am open to having friendly conversation with people about books because I love them. But I think if someone were to criticize, say, The Song of Achilles, I can take criticism for Harry Potter, I criticize it myself, but The Song of Achilles has a special place in my heart, and if anyone criticized that, I would probably cry. 8. When did you start reading? So, like I said, I started reading when I was a lot younger, so maybe about 3-ish, maybe a little bit younger, when I like properly started getting into reading. My mum had me reading and writing before I even went to school, so I was a very, very early reader. However, I've kind of gone through dips throughout the years of on and off reading. So in primary school I don't really remember reading that much. I remember reading like Lemony Snicket and J.K. Rowling, and I was a librarian as well when I was in primary school. And then when I got into high school in year 7, I was like a little bit of a loner. I was that kid that used to always sit in the library with a book, not talking to anyone. So I started reading a lot, but then as I got later into high school, I didn't read at all. And then when I got back into university, I had to read. And I'm not a very fast reader either, so it is tricky to be reading all the time, especially when it takes me longer than the average person to read one book. And more recently, especially this year, I've been reading more for myself rather than for my studies. So I'd say I started reading when I was about 3, but I go on and off all the time. But hopefully now that I'm done with my studies, I'll be able to find more time to read for myself. Question 9. Where do you read? I literally read everywhere I can. I tend not to read in bed, just because I've got like loads of problems with my joints, and I find lying in bed, unless I'm like lying flat on my back, to be really uncomfortable. So reading as well as trying to lie there and get myself into a good position isn't great for me. So I tend to read during the daytime, but I literally read anywhere. I read in the garden, I read on the bus or the train, I read in coffee shops, anywhere that I can find a nice quiet place to just sit down, clear my mind and read, I will be there. And the final question, number 10, what kind of books do you like to read? I read a lot of different types of books. When I started university, I tended to just read young adult fiction, and then when I got into my studies, we started exploring a wide range of different texts. So we did from the medieval period right up until the 21st century, and none of them were young adult or child fiction. There was a lot of poetry involved, which I found really fascinating, and loads of like adult books where they like properly delved into like deep meanings within adulthood and stuff. But for my own personal reading, I tend to read more young adult fiction. I have kind of been reading like Sarah Waters and stuff, which is adult fiction, and I would like to start reading Stephen King at some point, but I mostly stick to young adult fiction. I don't really have a genre that I really go to. I do read a lot of queer lit, like I said. My current read is Witchborn by Nicholas Bowling. I just finished Queens of Geek by Jem Wild, which I read in a day. I loved it so much. But I picked this up because I thought the cover looked really pretty. And it just sounded really interesting. But it's very different to anything that I've read before, because it is a mixture of fantasy with history. Mary Queen of Scots is a character in it, and it's about witches and the Tudor era, or the Tudor period. So I do like to branch out and read different things, and I'm open to trying different things. If I don't like them, then I don't like them and I just don't continue. But I have found that like through recommendations, and sometimes because the cover looks pretty, that I do find other books that I do really find interesting. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it wasn't too boring. Let me know in the comments if there's any other types of videos that you would like me to do, any other tags or challenges, any books that you would recommend, or any books that you'd like me to do reviews on that I've spoken about. Remember to go and follow my Bookstagram at Holly Loves Books. I tend to follow back if you have a good Bookstagram, and I may give you a shout out as well. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you when I get a chance. Bye!